I don't even remember what I was going to talk about today, but I know what I'm going to talk about today now. So, I don't talk about the protocol that I use or insulin resistance in terms of weight loss very often because there's just so much controversy. And unless you're extremely obese, I personally don't want people to focus on their weight um, instead of their health. So I'm always focused on building your health and helping all of these other issues that are going on with you so that you can start to have a better quality of life. But as usual, I get a ton of questions about weight. My current clients, I have people who say, what about if I stalled weight? What if I've this? What if I've that? So let's talk about insulin resistance and weight gain and weight loss today. And just a few things that I found really, really interesting that are going on within the body. So, how many of you guys, gentlemen and ladies, have heard that calories in, calories out, the severe restriction of calories or restriction of calories is what you've got to do to lose weight? If that's what you've been told, put a 1 in the chat. If you've been told that calorie restriction is the way to go, I want to know, is that what you think weight loss is about? And that's where weight loss occurs, is when you restrict calories. I would love to know. So if that's what you've heard and that's what you know, put a 1 in the chat. Okay, so let's be fair. Ooh. The ginger in my tea just hit me really hard just now. Okay. If you think it's something else other than just excuse me, calorie restriction, put a 2 in the chat. Hold on, you guys. Whew. Allergy season is upon me here in Maryland. And being a North Pacific Northwest person, I'm not used to the allergens here, so it's hitting me different this year. Okay. So we're talking about how to lose weight, what makes you gain fat, what makes you lose fat, what makes your hunger hormone turn on, what makes your hunger hormone turn off. And it's more complicated and yet more simple than you think. First of all, what I want to dive into is this whole thing called insulin resistance. But why that? Insulin is an energy transport system for glucose or sugar. So, nuts and bolts. Our body's either running on burning sugar for fuel or burning fat for fuel. When you're burning sugar for fuel, you can't burn fat. You can't get rid of it. You just keep storing more and more of it. So, when we talk about this whole thing about metabolism and people talk about their metabolism slowing down and that's why they gained fat. No, we gained weight because we went from a fat burning person to a sugar burning person. And that excess sugar triggered a whole array of things that caused you to gain fat. So let's take a look at a couple of things, just like really, really briefly. Okay. There are much better people out there to talk about this than me, but I just want to introduce this to you. So, there have been some studies done on women who did a severe calorie restriction. They moved them to 1,000 calorie diet. And what they noticed is in the first month, yeah, all the women lost a lot of weight, right? This thing, and I'm going to jump around a little bit. So if I get confusing, let me know and I'll try to go back and clarify. But there is a chemical that your body puts out called lipoprotein lipase. And what that does is it kind of scouts for triglycerides and pulls them out of the system and stores them into the fat cells. So the interesting thing is that lipoprotein lipase that's allowing you to store more fat was higher in these women before they went on the severe or the very low calorie diet, right? So it went down for a time, meaning their bodies weren't converting the nutrients in our food into fat. But at about 30 days, that lipoprotein lipase went back up. So I'm going to give us all some unfortunate news, but I'm going to also give us some really good news, okay? There is a truth that once you've allowed your body to put on excess weight, you're always going to be battling that weight. Okay, once you've gotten your fat cells to grow and be expanded, it's easier for them to grow again later. So now you have to be very much more conscious of what you're doing. But there's another concept I want to talk about before I dive into everything else, and that's this. If what you're doing got you where you are, and you start to get better and you go right back to doing what you're doing now that got you where you are you going to get sick again? Yeah. Now, I've fallen prey to this too. Like, I have emotional days, I have, months that are really hard. I have so much emotion in this body that I tend to I am not always perfect. Let's just say it. I'm not always perfect. So, I mean, even in my journey, I've gone back to um some foods that were present when I was a child because there's an emotional connection, right? Not because there's a nutrient connection, but because there's an emotional connection. We all have this tendency to float back to those things that trigger dopamine, serotonin in our brain when we're eating something that brings us a good memory, whether it's nutritionally good for us or not. So we're battling a lot of things, but if we don't change what we've been doing, we're not going to change what's happening with our health. So I spent about an hour on the phone with a mother and daughter last night, and you know the daughter is doing an injectable drug, and um, has been listening to healthcare providers, and they have done all these tests, and they've told her that they don't really think that there's anything wrong with her, just that she's fat and needs to lose weight, so do this drug. And we had a long conversation about the drugs, and what I want to say in all of that is this: the drug is not changing the basis of why she gained weight or why any of us gained weight or why we got sick in the first place. That drug isn't changing that baseline, that foundation. And so it's not going to have a long term effect. But the thing is, and when people ask me about the protocol do I need to do it all the time? Remember I said that if you've put weight on, you're going to have a harder time with it from there on out. Your body's going to kind of want to go back to that. So now you have to make sure that you make changes and keep changes. That's the answer. If what got you there is defunct and you think that doing something healthy for a month, 2 months, 3 months is going to just fix it all and have long-term effects, you might want to change your thinking and your thought process on that. If you do something healthy for 2 to 3 months and then you just go right back to the unhealthy lifestyle, not getting in the nutrients you need and eating too much sugar, you're going to go right back to where you were. That's the harsh truth, right? And the ugly truth is that now that you've gained the fat, you're going to have a harder time losing it and keeping it off. That's just a truth. So we have a lot of people who get really great weight loss, but the truth is they keep it off because they're consistent with what they're doing. So now, all of that little lecture to go into all of this next thing. When we looked at those people who had very low calorie diets and this protein that was help or this lipoprotein lipase that's helping store fat in the fat cells, when that substance went down in the beginning of the very low calorie diet, it went right back up after about 30 days. So now the thing is that instead of eating 1800 calories and that lipoprotein lipase being at the same place, they had to stick to the 1,000 calories because once they went back to the 1800 calories, all the weight's going to come back on. So weight loss is not about calories in, calories out. It's about hormones, and there's a bunch of them that play into how you store fat, how hungry you are, all of that. The biggest indicator, the biggest regulator, the biggest like bully in that playground of weight loss and weight gain is insulin. So what they found in these women though, in a group of the women, they kept them on this very low calorie diet. In another group of women, they started adding insulin to see, hey, They're eating the same thing. What's happening in there with the protein lipase in the women who had insulin added, even though they had a restricted calorie diet. So they didn't have excess sugars, but they started injecting them with insulin to make sure that it mimicked somebody who had a higher insulin level. What they found was, and I didn't explain I did a little bit, that LPL is just allowing fat into your fat cells, encouraging fat into your fat cells. So we're just going to call it LPL. So that LPL, encouraging fat into your fat cells, in the presence, so it had gone down, it rebounded to a normal amount. Now they add insulin to see what's going to happen to this person. That LPL increased by about 8 times, not 8%, 8 times. So the propensity of the women on the same diet doing the same thing, the group of women that had insulin added started gaining more weight because their fat cells were much more receptive to pulling in storage. So insulin did that. High insulin levels encouraged them to be putting on fat again, to be storing up fat in those fat cells again 8 times. But the crazy thing is, on these extremely limited calorie diets, after the initial part, and I talk about this all the time, after the initial part, that LPL increased by 12 times. So on a very low calorie diet, your body's going into starvation mode. Now it's wanting to store as much as it can as fat. For the first month, fine, okay, we got you, we're trying to lose some weight, we're doing whatever. But now you extend that and the body perceives you going into starvation. So instead of losing more weight, it's encouraging more fat to be stored. When I talk about the 16-8 fast, and I probably don't do it as much on this as I do with my clients behind the scene, but I don't, let's see, I'm not an advocate for OMAD long term. OMAD occasionally, one meal a day, occasionally I have no problem with. But when somebody's trying to extend their fasting into OMAD or one meal a day, I personally don't like it. Not a scientist, not a doctor. I just let the cogs in my brain work. And I'm thinking, how do you get enough nutrients in a day if you're eating one meal? That gets tough for most of us. So rather than doing one meal a day, I mean, my personal thought is I would encourage you to narrow your eating window down to 8 hours, or not from 8 hours down to 6 hours, or maybe even 5 hours. So you have a meal, a few short hours later, you have another meal, and you're very nutrient focused in those meals. Now you're not going into calorie restriction. Now you're not having these problems where your body perceives this whole starvation thing going on. And now your metabolic rate stays higher. You are allowed to keep the fat off because the LPL is staying down. When I say that intermittent fasting is not about calorie restriction, I very much mean that. Intermittent fasting is allowing your body to switch from sugar burning to fat burning. That's the biggest key for intermittent fasting. It's not necessarily a slowed metabolism, but a metabolism that can't switch that's causing you weight problems. So when your metabolism can switch from sugar burning, not eating every 2 hours, that's training your body to use glucose for energy. Eating every 2 hours is training your body to go the opposite way of when you're I lost it because I read a comment. All right. So the question up here, and I don't have there's questions over here as well. You guys, I get so geeked out by some of this stuff, but then I lose. Morning, Melba. Okay. So in the hours that I do eat on a fast, and we're kind of bouncing all over the place. So ask questions where you need them. I'll fill in the gaps. When I'm eating, I eat a lot of food during those hours. Yes and no. I eat a big meal, and here's what I do. I focus on protein first. Well, it's actually fiber first because I want to build a healthy gut microbiome, because I want to help with satiety, because I want to help with how my food processes through my system, I do fiber first. Then I add protein, and I want to aim for, depending on how many meals a day I'm eating, whether it's 2 or 3, depending on the type of fasting I do. But let's talk about 16/8. Now I want to get in about a gram of protein per pound of body fat in that entire 8-hour eating window. But I don't want to be snacking in there because, again, that's just training the insulin to come up and down, or up more likely. So I focus on getting in 50, if it's a 2 meal day, to 75 grams of protein in a sitting. One of the things I find when I work with women, and most women are not getting in even half of the protein they need. Now, if you don't have enough protein, your body's going to slow down fat burning, because what's it saying? I don't have building blocks. I must be starving. So I'm going to store this fat, because eventually I'm going to need it. And if this body's too lean, I'm going to be in trouble. Protein is key. So I am eating a lot of protein. The other day, one of my meals was 2 chicken cordon bleus, chicken breast stuffed with ham and Swiss cheese, to get me over 50 grams of protein. Was I full afterwards? Yeah. Did I eat very many greens? Not really a lot. And I just added in my fiber beforehand. Do I try to eat a lot of greens and stuff? Yeah, when I can. Last night, my daughter-in-law cooked, so I had, she makes the most amazing Brussels sprouts. Never liked them before. She's has it down. We had Brussels sprouts, and I like that. That was amazing to me. The rest of the dinner, she's not as protein focused as me, so it was chicken, mac and cheese, lots of carbohydrates, little protein. So I have to supplement with a little bit of protein on meals like that. Might be a protein shake. But there it is. I just have a fairly normal diet. I'm just more cognizant of staying away from those packaged processed foods. Like mac and cheese is something I don't eat very often. But it was our family dinner night. It was her week to cook. That's what she chose. That's what I ate. Okay. So fiber, protein, and fats are what I focus on when I eat to get my body the nutrients it needs. Now, there's also another interesting thing. When you do the very low calorie diet, there's another place that LPL goes besides the fat cells, and that's your muscle cells. So, are your muscle cells using that LPL to store fat? No. They're using it for energy within their cells so that they can stay, the muscle cells. And I'm not talking just about skeletal muscle, I'm talking about any of the muscle, and your organs are all built out of muscle. Those cells will take in that LPL and immediately transfer it into energy for growth and function. But in the presence of insulin, the LPL activity, which is giving it energy in the muscle, goes down in the muscle, but it goes up in the fat cells. So now you're actually at risk of losing muscle, especially skeletal muscle, while you're gaining fat. So insulin resistant people recognize that they have all of this jiggly fat, but maybe their shoulders just don't look as strong as the next guys, or their butt droops a little, or they have sagginess somewhere in their body because they're losing muscle mass, because the muscles are not getting in the things that it needs to be able to build. And now we add to it that most people are not getting in enough protein or fats to be able to maintain healthy muscle mass. And, it gets scary when we talk about muscle mass, because people think that muscle mass means bodybuilder, crazy workout person. I'm talking about regular, everyday, we all need muscle on our body. Muscle makes us more metabolically flexible. Muscle wants to burn fat more than it wants to burn sugar. And so if we have more muscle on our body, it's going to be more insulin resistant. It's going to be or insulin sensitive. It's going to be taking in this LPL at a greater rate, keeping it from going into the fat cells, but going into the muscle cells so that the muscles can grow and be functioning. Now, when we look at some of the drugs, I'm sorry, my allergies are just killing me today. When we look at the drugs, one of the things that's happening is that I lost my train of thought. We were talking about LPL, talking about fat cells. Oh, yes, 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 muscle. So, and I know people get mad at me, and I'm sorry. There's some people maybe who have gone in and had a DEXA scan and really didn't lose weight, really whatever. But the science showing, the preliminary science showing on these drugs is this, that in order to lose the weight on the scale, and this is one of the reasons why I don't talk about weight a lot, is that you're losing muscle mass. About 40% of the weight loss is muscle loss for most people. So is that really a way that you want to lose weight? Because I think that what most of us want to do is lose fat, not lose muscle, right? Muscle is what keeps us active. And then here's the thing, when you do those drugs, we had this conversation last night, when you're utilizing those drugs to get the weight off, to do whatever, now your muscle mass is going down. And muscle is more insulin sensitive than other tissues in the body. Now you've decreased your ability to be sensitive to insulin when you do eat, because there's less of the tissue that takes it up the most readily. Those drugs may give you some weight loss initially. They may give you some weight loss while you're on the drug. But once you get off of the drug and you go back to your lifestyle, and how many people, I don't think I've spoken to one single person that's on those drugs that had really any good nutritional advice or counseling to be on those drugs, to understand that, okay, we're going to help you get your weight down, but this is what you got to do when you get it down to keep it off. Nobody's talking about that, because what happens is they go off of it, they start gaining the weight back, and then they go right back and buy more of the drug. Pretty good business model for the drug company. Okay. What were a couple of the other things I wanted to bring up? So your muscle cells are taking up less of the LPL. So your muscle cells are depleting, your fat cells are growing with very low calorie diet or insulin present. And actually, very low calorie increases that reduction of muscle mass more than the increase of insulin in the system. But it works together. Now, ghrelin, that was the other one I wanted to talk about. You have these two hormones called leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is your hunger cue hormone. Leptin is your satiety hormone. Leptin says, okay, I'm full, I'm done. Ghrelin says, ooh, I need energy, we got to eat. The other interesting thing is, on these very low calorie diets, I should quit calling them very low calorie because that would be like 500 calories. But on these low calorie diets, what they noticed in studies is that the ghrelin hormone, the hormone says that I'm hungry, feed me, actually goes up after a low calorie diet. So now you have a hormone that was maybe a little bit out of whack, but you go on a low calorie diet, now that hormone is increasing. And the interesting thing, what Dr. Ben Bigman called it, was you're you're teaching your fat cells to be hungry by doing those low calorie diets. So Patricia, that's great for you. And I hope that that remains. Okay. But I, on the other hand, have conversations with so many women who have a very different story. How is it that you're losing in inches? Well, inches are fat and muscle, right? So here's the thing though, when we look at the drugs versus I'm going to talk about a protocol in a minute, versus getting your insulin under control, the drugs that are costing you muscle, and you're losing inches because you're losing muscle and you're losing fat. I get that. 60% of it is fat, but a good percent of it is muscle. When we go about weight loss by addressing insulin resistance and we're lowering the insulin level in the body, now the fat cells are more receptive to taking in the energy that it needs, or not the fat cells, the muscle cells. The fat cells are less receptive. So in a very different model, instead of losing a lot of muscle to get rid of some fat, they're losing fat and maintaining, if not gaining back muscle. There was one gal on the metabolic classroom who was talking about that they noticed when people got their insulin under control without changing their activity level, without going in and doing more exercise, that they actually had more muscle mass on their body. That's going to translate to more weight, but less inches. Thank you, user 60006, whatever that is. So, and type 2 diabetes, you guys, it frustrates me when we're talking about weight, type 2 diabetes, because most doctors will just tell you lose weight, you'll feel better. Lose weight, your type 2 diabetes will go away. Lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. But what they're not addressing is the piece that caused you to be overweight and have type 2 diabetes in the first place is insulin. Yes, that's my before and after. So, Chesney, thank you. So I didn't have another graphic to put up today, but this is it. So when I started the system, this was me. I had a cane, a walker. You can't see, there's a disability on the plate there on my car. That was my life. This was actually partway into my transition, and I'd gotten to a point where I could walk, and I was comfortable with the fact that I could walk. I didn't need a cane. I didn't need all the stuff. So I went and I donated the cane and the walker, so that somebody else who needed it could use it, because I no longer need it. I actually needed both of those things at one point in time. And now I'm able to get back in the gym. Although I'm going to be honest, in the last few months, I've been doing more home workouts than gym workouts just because my lifestyle has been chaotic. But Carrie, your A1C is 5.9. So you're pre-diabetic. And we can, if you just make some changes and the protocol, I took my A1C from 7.4 down to 5.3. And all I did was fiber first, prioritize protein, fill up with fats, limit the carbs, do some intermittent fasting, and move my body. Now, I used the protocol to support all that, but that's how that happened. And it wasn't just about the weight. Yes, you guys, look, if I took my large suitcase that I check when I go on long trips and I weigh it, it's about 50 pounds that we can take in, right? That sucker is heavy. So I've always thought about, man, what if I strapped that? It would be awkward because it wouldn't be distributed correctly. What if I filled up that suitcase to 50 pounds and then strapped it to my back and tried to walk around for a day? I'd be out of breath. I'd be fatigued. My joints would hurt. I would have problems. So I get that the weight is part of it. But it's not just that, it's the actions of insulin within my body that caused me to get rid of brain fog, the extreme fatigue I had, fibromyalgia, PCOS symptoms, hypothyroid. My thyroid levels are all in normal range now. My hormones are in normal range now. I got rid of headaches and sleep apnea, and my diabetes, I'm at 5.3, and my blood sugars are in normal range, and my blood pressure is in normal range. My arthritis, I had 2 hip replacements and 1 knee replacement. One knee was just supposed to be replaced 2 years ago. It doesn't need to be now. Was it all because of weight loss? No, it was because of getting that hormone insulin down in my system. So, but it also helped me with vertigo, skin takes, melasma, hair loss. Those are my symptoms that I overcame. If you see yourself in any of that, understand that it doesn't take these drugs that are potentially causing harm to your body. In the conversation I had last night, we went over the mechanisms of it stresses your pancreas. It can cause gallbladder motility problems. It can cause stomach motility problems. It can cause intestinal problems. I've heard so many people come back with thyroid issues after all. So look, when we talk about hormones and weight, insulin is the one I choose to talk about the most, but thyroid hormone is your energy regulator. Okay. Insulin delivers the energy, thyroid regulates it. Insulin can interrupt thyroid production, so now you have a dual problem. Insulin can interrupt estrogen production. So women, if you have too much estrogen, you're going to gain weight. If you have too little estrogen, you're going to gain weight. Insulin disrupts your normal estrogen levels that are allowing you to have healthy levels of fat, but not gain or lose too much weight. Insulin is affecting all of that. Insulin is affecting your hunger and your satiety hormones, that leptin and ghrelin. So thyroid, androgens or estrogens, and your hunger and satiety hormones. And then we talk about our stress hormone, cortisol. Insulin can aggravate and push all of those out of level. And all of those have to do with how your body burns fat. So if you want to get to the root cause, the root of how to normalize all of those things, what you really need to understand is this, that we have to control the insulin. Okay. So type 2 diabetics, it looks very different than type 1 diabetics, but the protocol works for type 1 or type 2 diabetics regardless, because what it's doing is helping us reduce the need for insulin. Type 1 diabetics can't produce insulin. Type 2 diabetics are producing too much insulin. But at the bottom of both of those diseases is insulin and insulin regulation. So in type 1 diabetics, they're taking in insulin in response to the food that they're eating exogenously. They're taking in, or they're shots or a pump. They're taking in insulin to help them with the energy delivery of the food they've eaten. Type 2 diabetics, our insulin from our pancreas is too high. Either way, we need to make it so that our body isn't needing these great spikes of insulin to transfer that energy to the cells of the body. Type 1, type 2, this is going to work. Hey, Liddy Lou. Okay. We talked about fat cells. We talked about hunger and satiety hormones. We talked about muscles a little bit. Is any of that new information to some of you guys? Did you understand that very low calorie diets and increased insulin are actually costing you muscle while allowing you to gain fat? The very low calorie diets are only working for a small amount of time before that fat storage goes back to normal. So if it's not about calorie restriction, if it's not about all of that, what do we do? I'm gonna repeat myself so many times, but we've got to get the insulin under control. So remember at the beginning, I talked about we burn sugar or we burn fat. Insulin is the regulator for the sugar, right? It's delivering that sugar out to the cells of the system. So then what we need to understand, or what I'd invite you to understand, is that if we get the sugars under control, so we can get the insulin under control, we can change everything with metabolism. And that's hugely important. So how do we do that? Well, let's understand that our food is imperfect. One of the big problems, let's take another step back. A recent scientific paper said that 93% of US adults are metabolically unhealthy. That means that 93% of us are having an insulin problem somehow. Okay. So if 93% of us are getting sick and the root of all of this is insulin resistance and it's affecting 93% of us, why is it so prevalent? It's not like 5 or 10%. And there are all those people who have that weird diet, or this is affecting people whether they have a Mediterranean diet, whether they love Italian food, whether they love Mexican food, whether they love Indian food, whether they have a standard American diet, whatever. It's affecting 93% of us. And there's a vast array of food types and diet types out there, and yet we're all suffering from the same thing. So the bottom line of that is that I've got to look at these questions. So the bottom line is we've got to get the insulin under control to understand the rest of it. Melba says, how do you measure the grams of fat? I'm not clear on what are in dietary fat. You guys, I've done this for enough time. What I would encourage everyone to do is find, like I used Fit Day. Some people use, I think it's Fitness Pal. But until you start to understand what is in your food and how that those look normally, you may have to do some measuring and weighing just to see what's actually going into your mouth and into your body, not as a calorie restriction tool, but to say, hey, I'm getting in enough protein. Hey, I'm getting in a good amount of fats with that protein. Hey, my carbohydrates aren't that high. Even Dr. Ben Bickman says intermittent fasting is not about calorie restriction. It's about allowing that metabolic switch from burning sugar to burning fat. And that's what starts giving us health and getting the insulin under control. You have a food scale that measures for ounces and pounds. So that's great. You could use a food scale too, but just start kind of tracking it. Visually see, like, is a medium-sized chicken breast has maybe 30 grams of protein in it. A large chicken breast maybe has around 50 grams of protein. Do I weigh and measure every single thing that goes on my plate? No, I don't. I've just learned that this, like beef is higher in protein than chicken. So if I really want to up my protein, then I'm going to find a good cut of beef and have about a fist size of that. That's going to give me about 50, maybe 60 grams of protein, depending on the cut of beef. Now, I talk about fat a lot. Stop taking the fat off of it. We need fat with our protein. Um, and again, it's the sugar that's causing the insulin to go up. Now, this is a mistake I knowingly make, and I'm admonishing myself for it today. You guys, when we combine fat and sugars is when we have a perfect storm for disease and insulin resistance and health problems. Nowhere in nature, really outside of milk, is fat combined with carbohydrates. So when and it tastes good though, doesn't it? It tastes good when you put some butter on something that's full of carbohydrates but that combination actually increases your insulin level more than just the carbohydrate by themselves, or the fat doesn't really increase it. But interestingly, when the fat is combined with carbohydrates, now that insulin spike is going up. Corn syrup is the answer. No, corn syrup is not the answer because let's talk about it. I'm going to say this. Corn syrup is not the only answer. Corn syrup is definitely an issue, right? But it's not the root of 93% of us. What if I told you that seed oils can cause inflammation, which causes a rise in insulin? So things other than like avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, extra virgin olive oil, all of those seed oils that we love so much because they're so much healthier, um, that has been proven to increase inflammation, which then increases insulin resistance, and now we have a problem. So even though I talk about sugars a lot, there are some other components. But yes, TK, I don't know um, why that didn't show up, or did it? Oh, it does. Okay, okay, okay. I thought your comment was hidden, and I didn't want your comment hidden. Okay, and how do I feel about using a keto diet to reverse type 2? Always take in vitamins and minerals. All disease starts with depletion of, and I'm going to say it starts with depletion of nutrients. So vitamins and minerals are micronutrients. But when we look at macronutrients, fats and protein, we still have disease that links to us not getting in enough of that, because that starts this array of disorder within our hormones when our body's not getting the right building blocks, and it's considering itself starving because of the lack of those macronutrients as well. But I think you're on the right track, because I think that when we're looking at health and weight loss, what we need to do is stop focusing on the calorie part, start focusing on the nutrient part, start focusing on making sure you're getting 30 to 40 grams of fiber in a day, start focusing on making sure that you're getting 1 gram of protein per gram or pound of body weight. Start focusing on those things. Start focusing on getting in good, healthy fats. And by the way, eggs, Dr. Bickman calls it the perfect, the two foods he was talking about, eggs, perfect balance of protein and fats. Nature presented it, we eat it, and in our wisdom, we started taking out the yolks. Now we don't have the fats that needs to go along with those proteins, and now we start to have problems. Eat the whole egg. But milk is the only thing in nature that we're aware of that has the perfect level of protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Now, why? If I just said you should never pair fats with carbohydrates, why? When we think about milk, it's made for babies who are trying to grow. So those three nutrients in the perfect balance are creating the perfect growth cocktail. So lactating mothers who are breastfeeding, whether it be a mother goat, a mother cow, a human mother, what we're really doing is eliciting growth in that baby. We're delivering the perfect amount of nutrients in the perfect way for that baby to really get a healthy, quick start in life, and it starts to grow and be healthy. But at some point, right, we stop breastfeeding that child. We stop giving it that perfect cocktail because now the child is able to get up and eat and move and do a lot of things on its own, and it doesn't need that cocktail. In fact, that cocktail continuing can cause problems in adulthood because now they're still trying to grow and build and build and build too much, and too much could be too much fat, and now we have problems. So milk is great, but sparingly. Yes, there are tremendous growth hormones in milk. So I don't it's amazing to me. Everybody says, "Oh, just cut out dairy," and I'm sure that I could go read some studies and understand that side of it better. But I know that if I want something that's creamy and milky, I'm not gonna go to almond milk. I'm not gonna go to something that's By the way, almond milk has some protein in it, but very high in sugars, and so is oat milk. Um, Coconut milk in the can is really high in fats, but yes, it has some sugars too. So, milk, look, but I use when I make, I'm stuttering because I'm going through my day and looking at all the things I do. But, like, yesterday morning, I had one of my protein shakes, which is about 50 grams of protein and a good amount of fats in it. The fats that I chose to put in my shake yesterday was whole, heavy whipping cream. About a quarter of a cup is all I use because otherwise it gets to be too much, right? We don't wanna go too much either way, whatever we're doing. We just wanna get back to where we're eating healthy. But about a quarter of a cup of heavy whipping cream went into that. A little bit of raw organic peanut butter, some chocolate stevia, 50 grams of the protein that I love, and I had a great chocolate peanut butter shake for breakfast that had over 50 grams of protein and a good amount of fats to match that, and I stayed full until dinner time, actually. It's always amazing to me. I try not to lean on those shakes too much, but there are days when I use them because that's the life we're in. What nutrients are needed? So when we look at nutrients, there's a lot of nutrients needed, but when we look at the big nutrients, the macronutrients, those are protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Those are the three macronutrients. We need some carbohydrates. And here's the thing. I know everybody goes on and on about keto and how great it is, and I'm not going to deny that, but long term what happens is this. When we start to regulate the sugars down so much that we're doing like 20 to 30 grams a day or this no sugar a day, that can help you in the beginning when you're extremely insulin resistant, be able to switch from sugar burning to fat burning because you really got to kind of be a bully back to those sugars. But in a long term system, now we're going the other way. We at once trained our body to live on sugars only. And now with long term keto, we're turning to train our bodies to burn fat. Well, I hope you can understand that at some point our body's like, whoa, wait a minute. I have to self preserve. I can't keep burning, burning, burning all the time. What happens to the growth stuff that I need? But beyond the growth that we need in our cells, because they turn over about every 9 weeks, we need that healthy energy for those cells to start replenishing and regrowing and turn over and all of that. We need the fasting stage to start clearing out all the old cells, but we need them both. So just like eating too many carbohydrates was not the answer to our health, eating no carbohydrates is not the answer either. What we need to do is get our body more metabolically flexible. For some, that may mean keto and lower sugar levels at first until the body goes, "Oh, hey, wait, we're doing something different. Okay, I don't have to rely on sugar. I don't have to scream at my body for sugar all the time." And it will at first when you're trying to move to keto from having a sugar burning body. But once you get your body to understand that it should flex and go from sugar burning to fat burning, then having Sugars, and when I'm talking sugars, or carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is the better word. Good morning, Margie. When we're looking at that, now, having the fresh fruits and vegetables, and even if you go back to having a little bit of the boxed stuff, your body doesn't freak out as much because now it knows, oh, I can burn sugar when I need to, I can burn fat when I need to, and I can switch really easily. But when we go one way, when we go extreme keto for too long, or when we're just eating processed sugars for too long, this camp we're burning sugar all the time. This camp we don't know what to do with sugar. Neither one is healthy. So what if we start to take a look at our lifestyle instead of, oh, I got to be crazy left, I got to be crazy right, which I just did that backwards, but whatever. Instead of being crazy one way or the other, do you think that the creator or God meant us to be like such extremists with our diet? No. We should have a middle of the road diet. We should be able to eat and utilize sugars when it's appropriate. We should be able to fast and utilize fats when it's appropriate. Balance is key. Um, okay. So, Melba, when your husband years ago worked for an environmental company, there was a corn syrup spill that hazmat had to clean up, and he said it looked awful. He couldn't believe that we eat that. Yeah, I'm not an advocate for corn syrup. I'm just saying that corn syrup is a problem, right? Because it's delivering a high load of glucose into the system, and that's putting a load on your liver, and it's increasing your insulin, and it's increasing your sugar burning and your hunger for more sugars and all of that. But it's not the only problem. When we look at packaged box foods, what for me the biggest problem is this: we've stripped fiber out that allows us to slow down. And corn syrup, corn is actually a grain. Corn is actually a grain. And so what are some of the highest glycemic foods in the world? The grains. The grains. Okay, so corn syrup, unsurprisingly, is horrible for our liver, for our metabolism, and yeah, it's just not. And check this out. I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but over the weekend, I finally had the heart to sit down and watch Killers of the Flower Moon. I think I had some resistance to watching it because of our own family history and knowing the genocide that went on with my own tribe and whatnot. It's just sometimes I want to know, but sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just not ready to see and hear all of this over again. But watch the movie, great movie. Um, but they were suffering from wasting disease or diabetes. Interesting thing is, in our tribal history, so now I'm going to move into our tribe, the commodities, that the food that they were given as, I don't know, payment for the land that was taken, one of the big things that came in our commodities was corn syrup. Karo syrup was one of the staples. Karo syrup, Velveeta cheese, um, some peanut butter, bacon. That's probably the healthiest thing that was in there. But and sugar. So what they were giving us as food, and I'm not saying back then that they knew all this metabolic stuff. It was cheap, and it gave people food. And my native people, was like, what is all this sugary stuff? This is kind of good. And we got sick. Corn syrup is just bad. And it's just amazing to me when I think about it every day about how our people were just fed that as part of our staple of our diet. Now, what about honey? I think honey is better. Honey has some definite advantages to it, especially, if you have allergies and that's probably what I should do is find some local honey and ingest that, and that will help me adjust to the allergies here. But honey is still devoid of fiber, right? So ingesting honey is great, but understand that when you have honey, it's going to act similar to that white sugar, and it's going to spike your blood glucose really high, causing a high amount of insulin to be needed. If you add some fiber to that honey, so the honey's not just dripping right into your intestinal tract where it's getting absorbed into your bloodstream. But if you add some fiber to that, now it's slowing down that. and it's allowing that honey to deliver that great energy that honey has, but in a more sustained manner. So, honey, and here's the thing, honey cannot be taken in your fasting window. Am I saying you can't have honey when you're out of your fasting window? No. Honey, I actually like. I just caution people about the overuse of it, just like the overuse of anything else. Um, so I hope you guys learned a little bit about fat, fat storage, muscles, hunger, and why you're teaching what Dr. Bickman said is by doing these low calorie diets, you're teaching your fat cells to be hungry through some of the mechanisms I talked about. So, are you wondering why your propensity to put weight on gets bigger after you've gone on a low calorie diet for a long term? Are you wondering why you're more hungry? Because your body's perceiving starvation mode. The difference between that low calorie diet and fasting is this. When we do intermittent fasting, it's helping build our gut health. It's helping build our brain health. Cardiologists love it for what it does for the heart because now, in the bottom core of all of those, we're training our body to go from sugar burning to fat burning. And what that really means is that we're getting the insulin level down. When the insulin level is down, now a lot of amazing things that the body is supposed to do can happen, but we haven't seen it because we live in a society that's told to eat every 2 hours and we're eating all these foods that are processed. But it's not just the boxed and bagged foods, it's the or raw organic foods that we're getting have been stripped of fibers and whatnot as well. So we're just not getting in enough of that in our day. Now, I'm going to talk about the protocol that I use really briefly, and then I'm going to hop off. We'll talk again tomorrow. But the protocol that I use and why I love it, and there's some new information about the protocol as well. Those of you who've been following me and are like, I love the idea, I want to do this, but I can't deal with the sucralose, the very small amount of sucralose that's in the products. We now have, and it's live now, the products, both the tea and the pre-meal drink, sweetened with stevia. So they call it natural, balanced natural, Unimate natural. So there is that option to get that natural. Now, in my link to purchase the first time, they haven't put those in that link yet. It will be transitioning to be in that link within the next month. But if you want to get a hold of those products that don't have anything in them but the products and the sucralose, contact me and I can help you get a hold of those. We also have our new flavor of the tea out called apple spice. It's not on the order link, Melba. So here's what you guys want to do. Should we go over that? I do want to talk about Melba. Hang out with me for a second. I'm going to show you how to get to the apple spice. I want to explain what we're talking about to everyone else. So what I did to get this weight loss and this change in my body and get rid of all of the things up there is this: a tea in the morning, which you guys have been seeing me drink, and a pre-meal drink before I eat anything. The tea in the morning shuts down my hunger. By the way, I'm on my 36 and 12 fasting. So today is a fasting day. Liquids only and nothing with milk or any of that in it. So I'm having tea, I'm having water. I may have bone broth later, some electrolytes, maybe some collagen. That's all I'll have today is this tea. The tea shuts down my hunger so that I'm not feeling like, oh my gosh, I got to run eat. If I get hungry, I'm just going to have another tea. It'll shut it back down. We're going to talk about why that happens with the tea in a second. Um, so the tea is actually mimicking some of the same actions as those drugs, only instead of telling your body, hey, you've got to do this, it's giving the body the pieces. So, hey, you can do this. Big difference. But the tea's shutting down hunger. I'll explain that in a minute. Then the pre-meal drink is my extra fiber. So there's 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers in here. They've been proven to reduce a blood glucose spike by 20%. That's huge. So when we look at some of these things that we love to eat, guess what? If I'm going to have cheesecake, which I don't even crave anymore, I would just have 2 of these because now it's going to reduce the blood glucose spike, even in those high glycemic foods, by about 28% and my insulin spike by about 27%. That's what this does. The fiber encapsulates the food that we're eating, slows down the delivery of it, not depriving you of nutrients, but just slowing down how quickly all that hits your intestinal tract, meaning that it's like a time release thing for the food you eat. Now, when you do that and you're reducing that blood glucose spike and you combine it with intermittent fasting, which the Unamate supports in the morning when you're fasted, now you can start to make a metabolic change. Now you can allow the insulin levels to come down, stay down, and switch into fat burning mode because you can't burn fat when insulin is out. Now we have a perfect system. So a tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before I eat anything, it reversed my diabetes and almost all the symptoms up here. Insulin and fasting. Cheryl, I need to understand, are you taking insulin because you're type 1? Or are you taking insulin because you're type 2? Can you tell me type 1 or type 2 and why you're taking insulin? And while you're responding to that, I'm going to talk about Melba's question, the apple spice. I didn't do this yet, but let's get over here. You guys, I have so much pulled up in my web browser because we're getting ready. We're getting ready. Well, no, I mean, it's going to be August before we move, but for me, that means it starts now. Because I don't like to do things at the last minute. I say that, but then I do everything at the last minute. All right. So when you go to my TikTok page, and Melba, you're over here on Facebook. So let's take a look. When you go to my TikTok page and you see my profile. Oh. Okay. Dirty computer. All right. So you'll see my profile. The rest of you guys who want to know how to order, you're going to click on this link. That's going to take this link right here. That's going to take you to my landing page. Okay. Now, you use this link the very first time you order. Okay. That's going to link you to me. That's going to get you the 90-day money back guarantee, the satisfaction guarantee, the coaching, and those 1-hour calls like I had with somebody last night. And I don't charge for that. I just am helping people because they're on the system. So your type 2 elevated A1C. Okay, we'll talk about that, Cheryl, in just a second. Now, Melba, we're looking for, so this is the system, and this is what you're seeing when you open it up. You'll see that it goes right to the company website, not Amazon, not eBay, not Walmart. You don't get any of the guarantees or the coaching when you do that. This is authorized. So, Melba, right here live is Apple Spice on the link. But you're already a customer, right? So what you're going to do if you're already a current customer of mine is you're going to go to shop, and I'll type it in over on can I type right? I wrote everything but shop. So you want to go to shop.unicity.com. Okay. So we go to shop.unicity.com and look at when you're not logged in, it's going to show a higher price point than when you're logged in with my code. So that's the normal price. But if you log in, which Melba should be your email and whatever password you chose. Yes, I will post in here, Gail. So the link, let's get you the link first. Let's get that. Okay, Gail, that same link that they're clicking on over in TikTok is that right there. So if you just go there, you'll see what I just showed you. But now, and I didn't show you, I don't have this up here. What is going on? Have I lost my gourd? Okay. Now I can share with you guys on Facebook. Let's do this. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. Once you get here to shop.unicity.com and you've used my referral code. By the way, if you're just going directly to the apples, so some of the stuff I'm going to show you, That's my, oh, wrong, had too many numbers in it. That's my referral code. Okay, so now when we get there, Melba, and you go to the field rate at the top, see where it says field rate. These are all the field rate packs available. So it's not just the apple spice, which is a limited time, but the natural orange. So that's sweetened with stevia, and then our apple spice. You can get that pack now. You guys be careful. The 10 pack is what we do when you start a business, and that means you're getting 10 of the system, the complete system. But there's also now available, besides the apple spice, there is this natural lemon and natural orange. Okay, so right here is natural orange and natural orange balance, natural lemon unimate. It only comes in the combination of lemon and the orange balance right now, but that's how to get the sucralose free product. Those are both sweetened with stevia. When it says natural in front of the product, means stevia sweetened. Okay, so that's where you're going to find it. It's not on the front page yet. In fact, when we're ordering right now, what's happening is this. If the facility you're ordering from is out of the old lemon, you will get the new lemon that's natural. If it still has some old lemon, the stuff that I've been drinking, you're going to get that. And look, I've not experienced any adverse effects from the old one. We just have a number of people who say they can't do it, so we've changed everything. But there you have it. You're going to get one or the other until we've transitioned out of all of the old lemon unimate into the new stevia sweetened. But that's that. Are there any other questions about the product, Melba? Are you sure? Sure. Do you know where to find it now? So you're just going to go to that page and you're going to look through there. Now, you can also find it on the all products page, but just go to Feel Great and look for it there. All of the Unimate on the regular page, it's all in alphabetical order. So you're just going to scroll down and you can get the 2-pack in combinations. You can get 1-pack, you can whatever. But that's where you're going to get the tea and the stuff. So this is just another picture of me, guys. Again, this was me when I started the system. Okay, and this is me 2.5 years after starting the system. And this is all the stuff that I was suffering with before I started the system. Okay, so when I look at my health now, is it all about my weight? No, it's all about what's happening in my body, and are these things staying at bay? That's what I'm concerned about. But I want everyone to understand that weight loss is not calories in, calories out. I hope that you understand that. I hope that all the times that I say, I have something stuck here. There we go. All the times that I say weight loss is about hormones and not about the calories per se, that's real. There are so many hormones that play into whether you lose weight or not, and why some people are getting their insulin under control, but they're still suffering. Look, if you've been having weight problems for years, number one, understand you're going to fight harder to get that weight off and keep it off than someone who's just had the weight on for a few years. If you're in menopause and you're older, it's going to be a whole different struggle. If you have other hormonal deficiencies like thyroid or estrogen or whatever, it's going to be harder than other people, but it can be done. Okay. It can be done with just a simple protocol by supporting your body to get back to where it was always supposed to be in the first place. And that's why I love the system. So, okay. Any questions before I hop off today? I got the notice that I have been on. I mean, I could go longer, but TikTok is funny. I think it's because there were so many people who were taking live streams they did, and they would take the recording and then they would upload it as a live and actually not be there. and not be interacting with people. And so I think that TikTok shut that down for those reasons, because they want live streams to be live streams where you can interact. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. But look, if you're having problems with weight loss, if you're having problems with fat, understand that getting the insulin under control is your number one best defense. And understanding what caused you to have high insulin in the first place and avoiding that in the future is going to keep you healthy. We don't get to just have some magic pill that puts us into the state we want to be and then go right back to the things that caused us to be ill in the first place and expect to stay healthy. And when we understand that our food system is defunct and that's what's causing most of our illness, we can start to understand how to address it. So the system, you guys, I'm going to say this. I didn't talk as much about the system this morning as I thought I would, but that's the real reason I'm here, because the one answer that I found, the one thing that has been changing lives for a number of people is this natural system and the protocol that I talk about. Fiber first, prioritize protein, fill up with fats, limit your carbs, do some time-based eating, and do some move your body. Those things are going to help you stay healthier. And if you're honest with yourself, you didn't just magically gain weight. A number of things changed in your lifestyle. Maybe you started eating more boxed and packaged foods. Maybe you started leaning into fruits more than you should have, or not getting in enough protein, or you started being more sedentary or whatever. But making small changes and adding back in the nutrients that we need, like fiber. And by the way, the tea is really high in some of those micronutrients of vitamins. So like A, B, C, D, E, K are all extremely high in this, extremely high, being higher than most foods that we're getting now. So you're getting a good delivery of those nutrients just from the tea. Plus you're getting the antioxidants, you're getting the anti-cancer, you're getting the anti-inflammatory, and you're getting the hunger shutdown. Maybe I'll talk more about the GLP-1 stuff tomorrow. Let's do that. I do want people to understand. And look, here's the thing. You guys, those people that are sold on those drugs, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic, whatever, in truth, I'm really not going to change their mind. And that's fine. If that's what they feel like they want to do, we all have free choice. But I'm here to speak to the people who understand that those drugs might not be the healthiest thing for you and that there's got to be a better way. So this is a better way. It's giving you nutrients to elicit the response in your body that you're looking for to happen, with understanding of why it happened in the first place, and not just putting a Band-Aid fix that's not going to really address anything at all. Now, I want to go back. Somebody was mentioning, okay, I know I didn't mean to skip you, Cheryl. I hope you're still here. So type 2, if you're taking insulin and fasting, and so sometimes you guys understand that I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to be abrasive, but I can be very direct and straightforward. So I don't want to panic anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I want to deliver some truth. When Dr. Bickman talks about insulin for type 2 diabetics, this is what he says. When doctors are giving you insulin, it's a flawed ideology, and there was never a lot of scientific studies behind it in the first place. Just like there's not a lot of scientific studies behind these drugs for weight loss. You just I'm here every morning about 8:30, Gail. And I'm on for about an hour, Monday through Friday. I'm really diving into encouraging people to get back to what I would consider a real life wherein we're spending time with family and friends. And at first it was really uncomfortable for me to put down phones, but now it's not. I just don't answer the phone. If I'm with my family, I'm with my family. So Monday to Friday, I go live, and that's it. But back to the type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance and insulin. So what Ben Bickman says about giving insulin to a type 2 diabetic. First, I want to paint a backdrop for you. If insulin resistance is coming because you have too much insulin in your bloodstream, because you have too much sugar, whatever. So you have too much insulin and your body just can't keep up because it's becoming resistant to this too much insulin. rather than addressing the amount of sugar that you're eating and and how quickly it's converting and the lack of fiber, they're saying, okay, well, if insulin is supposed to be this delivery system, let's give them more insulin so that it's more likely to deliver it. But guess what? If you already have too much insulin, type 2 diabetic, and you're already resistant to it, is adding more insulin the answer? So when we understand the mechanisms, which I won't have time to go over this morning, but when we understand the mechanisms of what insulin resistance or insulin is doing in the body, especially in this resistant or hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin is at the root of all of these things. When we're at that stage, why would we add more insulin? Insulin is making you fatter. Insulin is shutting down all of these things for like sleep apnea and getting nutrients to your joints and getting nutrients to your muscles and all of these other things. So, when we understand that too much insulin is already a problem, we have to question why a doctor would give you more of what you're already having too much of. So, here's the statement. Dr. Bickman says this: doctors giving a type 2 diabetic insulin is making them sicker quicker, making them fatter quicker, and killing them quicker. So, Pamela, and I'll talk about that in a second. So, um, Cheryl, and that's not to scare you, but that's to make you be aware. So you can say, hey, doc, why are we doing this? Why are we giving me insulin? Why have you never talked to me about the root of insulin resistance? And if you don't want to talk to him about it, don't, but just understand that this is the problem. Dr. Bickman's book, by the way, those of you who are really interested, I'm going to encourage you to read this book. If you don't want to read the whole thing, at least go through and find the pieces that apply to you so you can understand what's happening and why. Better yet, read the whole book. But better than nothing, read the parts that apply. So if we can actually get the insulin levels down so the body can respond to the insulin in your system better, now you start to reverse diabetes. And adding insulin to your system is not ever reversing your diabetes. So it's called, Pamela, it's called Why We Get Sick. And you can look it up anywhere, but in my link tree, there is a My Recommendations tab. And in that is the books that I reference the most for all of this work. Now, I don't just reference the books, but now I've found, doctors and scientists, and I listen to a whole ton of podcasts, and I have a geeky brain. But yeah. So here's the other thing with that. If you're on insulin and that's what your doctor has you on to try and get your A1C down because your HbA1c is high, your HbA1c is an overtime shot of what your blood sugars are doing. So really you have a high sugar problem, right? So why not start addressing those sugars and how they're spiking in your system? Start limiting your processed carbohydrates. Eat carbohydrates that are above ground and green primarily, and then go to fruits for carbohydrates secondarily, but get rid of those boxed carbohydrates. You're going to start to see your A1C come down anyway. Add in this pre-meal drink instead of adding more and more and more insulin every year. You add in this, which helps you to get those sugar spikes down so you get your insulin down. Dr. Bickman's book. Let's take a look here. So if you go to the same link that I just put into Facebook and YouTube, you guys over here, just go to my profile and you'll find the link. Oops, wrong page. This one is the one I want. So when you get here, in the middle is this. Oops, I didn't show you guys. When you get here, you're going to see this My Recommendations page. And so for a long time, people were asking me about my glasses. I think y'all are used to them now. So I think I removed them. Now, Dr. Bickman also has a new book coming out. It won't be out until July. I don't get paid for talking about his stuff. I don't get paid at all for that. I'm just telling you, this is where you might want to start looking to start understanding the truth of what's going on for your health so you're not on medications constantly. I think about July 1st is when this book will come out, How Not to Get Sick. Okay. But the book we were talking about, and yeah, these are some of the other things I use. I do test ketones. I do have a Fit Watch. But his book is right here, Why We Get Sick. Another one you might want to read, or a couple, are Dr. Fung's books, The Diabetes Code and The Obesity Code. I'm going to say Dr. Fung is more technical in his writing, and Dr. Bickman is more digestible in his writing. I would start with this book. That's going to give you most of the answers you need. Some other books you might want to do are like the Diabetes Code Cookbook, and understanding this whole calories in, calories out thing. Dr. Giles Yao's book, Why Calories Don't Count. He goes into depth about this whole paradigm of calories in, calories out, and why it's been so flawed and not really getting people's health back. Okay. So any other questions? You guys, here's the thing I do want to say too, there's always something because my brain is always working, but so when you do the protocol, you get a 90-day money back guarantee. And this is the conversation I always have because this is what I believe from my heart. If you're sick and your doctor hasn't been able to help you and you just feel like you're bringing home more and more and more medications and you want to try something new and you want to try and get your health back more naturally, then why not try it for 90 days? You get your money back if you're not happy in 90 days. You don't really have a risk, except for that you could be building better health all the time that you're on it. So why not do that for yourself? It's $5 a day, and that's it. I used to spend more than $5 a day on soda and potato chips because my body was hungry for energy all the time because insulin was in control. Now, the other question I wanted to address, I hope that helps you. Oh, Gail. Was it Gail? It was Cheryl. So here's the thing. If you're on insulin and you're working with your doctor, fine. You can add the system in and you can have your doctor titrate you off the insulin as you go. If he's not willing to hear that, then maybe start talking with a different doctor who might understand metabolism a little bit better and see what he says. But look, this is in the PDR, the prescriber's digital reference. Your doctors can look it up. There are scientific studies behind both of these products that prove that they do what I say they're doing. So your doctor can actually, and I haven't talked about this for a while, your doctor can actually prescribe this for you. You have to buy it. You can turn it into your insurance and try and get reimbursement. Some people have been able to get their insurance to do that as a reimbursement, but not as cover the cost up front. And then people have been using their HSA to purchase it. So if you have an HSA account and it's just sitting there not getting used, and I know that's a frustration for a number of people, you can use it to purchase the system. Now, give it 90 days. In 90 days, if your health is changing, woohoo, now we have a winner. If you don't feel like it's for you, then you just say, hey, I want a refund, and they give you your money back, and you're good to go. How many times have you ever gotten offered a refund for your money on Wegovy or Ozempic or Mounjaro, and especially if it caused you a hospital trip or some other kind of issue that you may not even be aware of now? So, all right, guys, I'm going to go. I've been talking for long enough. I can feel it in the back of my throat. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. We will talk about GLP-1s tomorrow a little bit more because that came up today. And I want people to understand what's happening with GLP-1s. And actually that this little T, we're going to go over that. This little T increases your own natural GLP-1 activity by 70%. So without forcing your body, without causing disarray in your body, but just by naturally supporting your body, this is mimicking the actions of those drugs without all of the complications. Crazy, right? Okay, we'll see you guys in the morning. Bye, guys.